Okay, February 7th, 2022. It is about 37 degrees outside. It's raining, it's very cold. And today's episode is about me. It's all about me. Just gonna do kind of a reflection on my life right now. Early 2022. You know, it's February. I'm turning 29 soon. I got this house, which is probably the hardest thing I've ever worked on. It's the most challenging challenge that I've ever undertaken. I've made a lot of progress, but there's still, I am not at the halfway point yet, you know? This is, it's hard to stay very optimistic. It's hard to keep the motivation up because it's been more than 6 months now. It's coming up on 8 or 9 months. Yeah, and for the winter time, it's been so cold I haven't been able to work on anything. So I've been kind of bundled up in my room, and it's just not an environment for staying excited and happy and positive, you know? But I'm nearing the end of winter, and I am slowly getting the wheels turning again. I've started working on the plumbing. I have to install an entire plumbing system, which, as it turns out, is a lot more difficult than installing an electrical system. So, which I didn't really fully understand when I didn't know anything when I first picked up this house project. Didn't know anything. But I think the electrical is a lot more intuitive to me. And it's also, the way I see it is, electrical can kill you, but plumbing can ruin your house. So, if you mess up plumbing, water damage, as I've already seen with this house, is pretty intense. But if I spend another year, by the next winter, it should be in a much better place. And I'll have a house that actually has fully operational toilets and sinks and a shower and a kitchen and everything. Everything. I'm just still not there yet. I thought I would be here by now. You know, when I first got this place, I thought everything was going to happen so quickly. I thought I'd already be moving on to the next structure. I was naive. A naive fool. Which some people tried to warn me about, but I didn't listen. I'm stubborn like that. Been trying to think about where exactly to put everything. I know where I'm going to put a guest bathroom. I know where I'm going to put one kitchen sink. I might do 2 kitchen sinks just to be fancy like that. And I know where I'm going to put the master bathroom, but I don't know how I'm going to arrange the master bathroom yet, so. But the cool thing is, once I get one part of the plumbing done, the rest of it will stack on easily, because I'll just, I'll prepare it. The way I've done the electrical is every single time I put in a new circuit, where I've just been building with the future in mind. Everything is very future thinking. I have to be able to access everything, get back into everything. I have to be able to add and remove parts easily. It's very modular. That's been kind of the plan. And I know this house is going to look very unusual when I'm finished. It won't look like any other house around here, at least. It probably won't look like any house anybody's ever seen. My guess is I'm going to cut out walls. I've kind of got a plan for how I'm going to chop up the walls. There's at least 2 walls I'm going to take out, or at least cut holes through. So the whole house will be much more open. Which is unusual for houses around here, I think. Also, my California brain and body was not ready for this weather here. I mean, look at this. Look at this branch. There's ice on this. This is... You never see anything like this in Southern California. If you saw this in Southern California, something's wrong. Never gets below freezing. I can't even think of a time it was below freezing where I lived. Maybe like one freak occasion. It probably gets below freezing like once every few years for some reason, but only for like one day, you know? This has been a month and a half of freezing weather, and it was just not something I was mentally prepared for. So that's part of the reason I haven't been posting videos. I've just been like, not hyped and energetic like I usually am, I guess. Anyway, I gotta get this house fixed up so I can start inviting people over. I can start getting my rotating social life going again. Everywhere where I've ever lived, I used to have people over every week. It's kind of like I love hosting things. I love hosting people. But I can't invite people over to a house for dinner or poker night or whatever, or game night or anything, you know, for a party. I can't throw a party when my house looks like shit. So, I'm living in a construction site. It's not good for hosting people. And I think that I've become used to hosting people pretty much ever since I had my own place. So, yeah, this has been an unusual time of solitary confinement for me. But before I set on the van trip, I haven't made the van video yet. Just realized that. I still need to make that. I was going to wait till it gets all green and then I'll make the van video. Because I wanted the background to look nice. So I expect I will be getting new viewers for the van video. But anyway, I wanted to say that I read Walden Pond. Is that what that book's called? Yeah, Walden. What's the book called by Thoreau? Is it just called Walden? I think it is. I don't know why I can't remember the title of that book, but I read that, and I read Into the Wild. They're both about people, guys, young guys like me, who spent a very long time by themselves. And they did all right. One's got a movie, one's got a book, so I've got a YouTube channel. And I got a cat, but he's not here right now. I had a plumber over this morning to talk him through what I was going to do. This is what I do. I invite professionals over to get a quote. And then I just sort of bring them into the house and I talk through the thing with them, right? Today it was plumbing. And I go, okay, there's probably going to be a sink here. There's going to be a toilet there. Here's where the septic line is. I brought him down in the crawl space. I showed him around. I said, here's how I would do it. How would you do it? And then he sort of tells me. And I go, yes, thank you, okay. And then we have a conversation. I send him home. I say, yeah, send me a number. I'm not really looking for help, you know? I just need his knowledge. So I just need him in the room to talk through these things. This guy was somewhat helpful. I don't like when they can't defend their stances, though. Like, he wanted to put the plumbing vent in this one wall. And I kept asking him why, and he just said that's because that's how it's done, because that's how they do it, because that's how it's done. That's what he kept saying. He's like, that's just how it's done. It always goes behind the sink, right here. That's how it's done. And I kept asking him why, though. Why? And the best answer was because that's how it's done, or because that's how code wants it. But I've been having this mental problem with plumbing, with venting plumbing systems, because the way that you're supposed to vent a plumbing system is you run a line up through the roof of your house. That way the sewer gases can escape through the top, and that way you don't get these negative pressure vacuums that pull water out of your P-traps, which is a big problem in houses. Yeah, it's not something I really knew until I started looking into it. That's why you have the P-trap there, and to create a water barrier to keep the sewer gas out of your house. So you have to have a vent through the roof, which is not something that's easy to build, because it's gonna have to what I need to build is a series of PVC tubes that connect to like 7 different fixtures, and then at the bottom connect to a septic line, and at the top connect to a roof vent. Which you can't just build part of that, right? Well, you can, but you need to at minimum have the connection to the septic, and then to the roof, and then to your at least one fixture. So basically, to build this system, I can't, I'm not going to build it all at once, but I have to build at least like 40 or 50% of it material-wise, all at once. Just to have one working part, I need to build basically half the system, which is not something that's true of electricity. To have one outlet, you just need one wire running to one fuse, or one, So, yeah, and plumbing is not something that's intuitive to me. Electrical really is. But this guy couldn't defend his position, so I have another plumber coming on Wednesday. And I'm going to do the same thing. See what he says. Where would you put the plumbing vent? The vent has been very confusing to me. I've been looking up so many videos. I bought the code book, which should be here tomorrow, because I can't find anybody that will give me solid reasoning behind why plumbing vents go where they go in these systems. I can't figure out what the motivation is. I don't know if it's cost, like savings to save on material. That's why you would put it up behind a sink. I keep seeing different diagrams. I've been looking at diagrams of plumbing of different houses, and oftentimes the plumbing, the vent to the roof is usually where there's the most fixtures nearby, right? It's like proximal. You want to, like, if you have a master bathroom, now if you think about how your house is set up, unless you live in an apartment, it's likely that your plumbing fixtures are near each other, and it's likely that your vent is near all of your plumbing fixtures. So when you're building a house, you have to think about this stuff. But what I'm doing is renovating a house, moving all the bathrooms around, and when the house was initially built, it wasn't even built with a bathroom. They moved it here, and then they put a bathroom inside of it, and then they added an extension, and then they added another extension. And so I'm in a house that has generations of renovations done to it already. And so it's a strange problem. And this guy's insisting on putting the plumbing venting in a place where, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So if the other plumber comes over and says the same exact thing, then I'll be like, maybe I'm wrong. But if this other plumber comes over and says something wildly different, then I know that it's the same. This was my experience with software developing, software field, right? Anything in the web development, back end, front end, full stack, JavaScript, Python, all these things, a little bit of PHP, Ruby, all this stuff. Not Ruby, I never did Ruby. But there's always more than one way to skin a cat, and there's always a way to make an argument for it. And a lot of the times we'd be sitting around in these meetings going over different solutions, and it would just come down to seniority, or it would come down to whoever can make the best argument at the time. But usually that has more to do with debate skills than it has to do with like engineering first principles logic. So, or it comes down to like management structure or the way that you like organize the idea flow of your company. It's not really like if you're being rational, there's usually a best way to solve a problem, or at least like a small handful of best ways to solve a problem. And a lot of the time, you don't end up doing that thing because you get caught up in the communication process where somebody says something very confidently that they shouldn't be so confident about. And then they stick to their guns, because what happens is that if I say, hey, maybe that's not the right way to do this, suddenly it's not like I'm attacking their idea, it's like I'm attacking them. It's like I'm challenging their position in the entire hierarchy of the company to begin with. So if I say, hey, I disagree with you, it's like I'm threatening their very existence. And so they double down on it. And then in, you know, an engineering company, one of these tech companies, it sort of turns into, you end up building a thing, because then the manager at the end of the meeting, right, who doesn't usually know anything, the product manager is usually just somebody who went to school for communications and just takes notes the whole time and just knows how to organize humans and sets up tasks and distributes tasks. And basically, you have all this talent in this company, all this human brain power, that ends up getting completely misused or ends up building the wrong thing. Like, you build something that's good and it works, but it's just built in a way that nobody would really want to build it. And part of the reason for that is that you can't see it and touch it in the software land. But also part of it is because, like with this plumber over here, sometimes people just, they get a thought, they get an idea, and then just get stuck on it. It's hard to get yourself out of it. And then, so this plumber guy, right, if I sat him down, I got some paper out and some like calculators and, you know, and we went through the problem, like, why do you want to put the plumbing vent here? Here's a model of the house. Here's how water flow works. Like, why exactly would you put it here? And, you know, I didn't want to pester this guy too much. He was kind of quiet. I'm pushy, and I already feel a little bit bad about sort of the ethics of using this guy's time just to get his knowledge, right? But he just kept saying, because that's how it's done. That's how they do it. That's how it's done. Because that's how I would do it. That's how it's done. That's how we're going to do it if we do it. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, but like, I want to hear, no. The vent needs to go here because it's X number of feet away from this fixture. And in reality, the way that I'm going to set the fixtures up in my own mind, it's going to be sort of a triangular sort of shape. It'll be one part in the middle. The septic line is in the middle. Everything will drain to the middle, and there'll be 3 lines running out in sort of an equilateral triangle that will. Yeah, it kind of worked out that way naturally. I'm probably going to put the plumbing vent in a different spot than where that guy suggested. And I'm not a plumber. I have no professional experience. I don't know if he's right. So maybe I'm the stubborn one. But yeah, we'll see what the guy says on Wednesday. What did I start this video talking about? I said this one's going to be about me. So yeah, there you go. It's about me. I'm pretty annoyed at Joe Rogan. You know, I'm a Rogan fan. I've been listening to his podcast for about 2 years now. And not all of them, just the ones that are the people that I think are interesting, but he apologized for saying the N-word in his previous podcasts. Podcasts long before I was ever listening to him, before I even knew he existed, really. You know, fun fact, I have seen Joe Rogan live twice, both by accident. Both completely by accident. I went to the comedy club in LA. I remember my buddy brought me there. We went on me and a couple friends went to go see some random comedy night, and it was just a bunch of random people. And then at some point later in the night, the mic guy got up there and he goes, "It's Joe Rogan." When Rogan runs up on stage, I was like, "Oh, I know that guy." And that was before I started listening to his podcast. That was back when, in my mind, he was mostly just like I remember him being like the loud, angry comedian guy. Fear Factor guy, really. But then I went to Austin, Texas on this van trip, and the same thing happened. I bought these tickets to this comedy club. This one was for a Hinge date. It was for an online date who stood me up that night. I was just driving through in my van, swiping on the thing. And she was a teacher that lived somewhere near Austin, Texas. And she was hot, I thought. And then we talked for a long time, went back and forth, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna buy tickets to this comedy thing, and we should go out." She was like, "Sure." And then that day, I was like, "All right, we're gonna meet up." She just completely ghosted me, like 100% ghosted me that day, right? We were talking, I was only there for like a week, so I don't know how many days we were talking, maybe 2 or 3 days. But the day of the thing where I said, "Hey, I'm gonna buy these tickets," and I spent like $150. I don't remember. It was like 120, 150. It was like a lot of money. I got like the front row seats. And turns out, and this again was completely by accident, it was at the Vulcan Comedy Club, which turns out that's where Tony Hinchcliffe performs. That's the show that I bought the tickets for, was Tony Hinchcliffe and a bunch of friends. And then at the end of the night, the mic announcer guy gets up there and he goes, "Guess what, everybody? It's Joe Rogan." And then Rogan runs up on stage. It was the same thing again. And he was up there for like an hour. He smoked a joint on stage in front of everybody in Texas, Austin, Texas. It was a great experience. And I was sitting right there, front row seats, like looking up at Joe Rogan himself. The guy looks like a potato on skinny legs. He's got like skinny legs and then like the biggest body, and he's short. He's got a funny shaped body. No offense, Joe Rogan, when you inevitably see this clip, when I become as famous as you someday. But yeah, he's funny, he was hilarious. And then he was talking to the audience towards the end. He kind of went through like his bits. He did kind of like an act. And then he was just talking to people, like trying to get ideas from people, smoking a joint. And he goes, "All right, start shouting out ideas." And so people are shouting out things like aliens, Alex Jones, you know, they're like shouting out all these things they want him to talk about. And I just go, "Graham Hancock." And like, weirdly, he picked up on that and he looks at me and he goes, "Graham Hancock?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, he kind of like, I said, "What do you think about him?" And the room was all quiet. It was weird, right? Like everybody heard me say it in this comedy thing. And then Joe Rogan himself looks at me on the stage. He crosses his arms, right? And he goes, "What do you think about him?" I remember just sitting there looking up at him. I was like, "Oh shit." I said, "I think he's right." That's what I said. I think he's right. And the room was all quiet, right? Because I don't think anybody knew. And he goes, "Bro, there's like 2 people in this whole room that know who you're talking about." And there was like this, you know, he said that. And I'm kind of freaking out because I'm like, "Oh God, have I just embarrassed myself?" And some random dude in the back, like on the top level on the back, just goes, "Woo!" Like, and kind of just saves it. And then Rogan kind of turns around and he thinks for a second, and then he goes off on this like 10-minute spiel about Graham Hancock and how meteors hit the planet and human civilization got reset and all that stuff. Like he just kind of goes off on a rant about it. It was hilarious. It was funny. But yeah, I talked to Joe Rogan. I actually did. I exchanged actual words with Joe Rogan one time. Me sitting, watching him on a stage. It's like completely by accident. I didn't even know he was going to be there that night. And I had these 2 girls with me because I went around, to these bars around the comedy club because this girl ditched me, right? It's like 7 o'clock. I have like an hour and a half until the show starts. So I just went around to bars just asking girls to come to the show with me, and finally these 2 said yeah, and we just went to this thing and we ended up seeing Joe Rogan. They got free tickets, you know. One of them had to get a ticket from her buddy, who ends up being this guy who's in a wheelchair that I see all the time now. It's funny, after being to the Vulcan Comedy Club and seeing all the comedians go up on stage, I saw Tony Hinchcliffe and I saw Ron White and I saw like all these people who I didn't really know who they were, but now that I've seen them in person, I see them pop up now in kind of like the Joe Rogan circle of people. So it was weird. It was like I drove through Austin, Texas, and I got the full Austin, Texas experience. I went down and I saw Elon Musk's rocket ships. I didn't get to see one launch. I was going to. There was one scheduled for launch, but they kept delaying it. And I didn't want to hang out there in South Texas for like a week because that place sucks. That place is the place where they built the Starbase, where Elon built Starbase, where they're going to launch all those rockets from, where they currently launch rockets from, and where they're going to be launching hundreds and thousands of rockets in the future. There's a little town right next to where they built it, Brownsville, Texas, and it's like got to be one of the, I mean, no offense to that town, but it's a terrible town, a terrible place. It's just like run down. It might have been a great place 100 years ago or something, but you know, probably very low. What do you call it? A juxtaposition, right? You drive through this town pretty much. Or you can drive through it. You sort of drive down that highway and you can kind of just turn left and go straight to Starbase. But if you go down the highway slightly further to the right, it's Brownsville. I mean, I assume most of the people that work in Starbase live in Brownsville, or I don't know where they all live or work, but that place is going to have its universe exploded. Like, all of the people who live there, all the people who have lived there their whole lives, their lives are about to be flipped upside down. I mean, and I talked to people that were there, like, property value is like 2.5 times higher than it was a couple of years ago. And, Elon's been buying the land, kind of by force, but also kind of giving them way more money than they ever could have ever hoped for that land. But it's just desert. It's just like, it's right on the Rio Grande. I camped right out by the Rio Grande. I camped right there. I was looking across the river at Mexico. And, a lot of that town is just... I met these guys that were trying to buy land there. They wanted to buy this big chunk of land and then just chop it up and sell it to people in the future, basically as an investment, which is probably either an amazing idea because, Starbase is only going to get bigger, but that land might all become worthless once Starbase becomes fully operational, because rocket ships make the loudest sound ever. Like, it's like a thundering a thundering sound. Everybody I talked to in the town was like, yeah. Like, there's people 5 miles away from the place, and when they can hear a rocket launch. So, and that's... Just imagine what it's going to be like when that place is launching rockets like several times a day. Just, big, loud sounds. So that land is going to become worthless, I think. Or you're going to have like really good soundproof where you live, or you're going to have to just become acclimated to the constant sound of rockets launching. So, yeah, I looked at places. I looked at a house down there. I was considering. I was like, why don't I just move next to Starbase? That'd be a great place to live. But it's just... land was overpriced and not worth it because it's mostly desert. I like my trees. I like the trees here, So... But yeah, visiting Starbase, seeing Joe Rogan, I got the full Austin experience. Hung out with some girl who we went back to her apartment. She showed me her tit and then she fell asleep. Oh man. And then I got an Uber back to my van that I had parked. I got really good at finding parking spots where, as I had this minivan, I could just park it anywhere in the city usually and just sleep there. Like, you basically, I got to spend a week in Austin, Texas for zero money other than food, really. That's the advantage of the van life thing and the flexibility. Like, when I just felt like going there one day and I just decided how long I wanted to stay. I left for Brownsville. I checked out Dallas and San Antonio. I checked out, I was looking around. I thought I might move to Texas, but it was just... That place is going to turn into LA. Like, I have no doubt that Austin, Texas, whatever thing there is that is, it's going to turn into LA. There's just too many people moving there with too much money, too many liberals that have too much money. The liberal elite are moving there. That's the problem. We don't even need to call them liberals. They're not liberal. The people who make lots of money and are very educated, they call themselves liberal, are moving there. And they're going to, well... They're going to do what they did to California. It's partially Joe Rogan's fault. Anyway, I'm probably going to end this now. This is enough blabbing. Enough talking. I like what the creek looks like when it rains. Okay. Bye. Oh yeah, today's February 7th, 2022. See you later.